One. Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here, joined by Austin Brubaker. Austin, we have the World Series coming up here in just a couple of days. It's very exciting. I know you did a great job last night breaking down a lot of the matchups. We're going to talk even more about the matchups. How you doing this evening?
And I saw that you were doing some stuff for your other stat that you have with Oklahoma State and stuff. I have a question for you. And I wasn't going to ask you just privately. I was going to ask you during this. Were you one of the people in one of the banana suits on the Congo line at the Oklahoma State game on Saturday?
I wasn't one of the shirtless people either. Oklahoma State has started a deal where Section 231 is shirtless men waving their shirts in the air. I wasn't one of them either. No.
Okay. Maybe for one of these upcoming games you are, but obviously a lot of things are happening in the world of Dodgers, which means that we are up. I'm up late during tonight to be able to break down continued further the matchups between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays, because on Friday we have World Series games, and this does not happen for a lot of other organizations, but we have the privilege to be able to cover the World Series with the team that we care about coming up here in a couple of days. Couldn't be more excited about it.
100%. So let's dive in. Okay. Some of the appeal to it, I think, in my opinion, you definitely have the number one. You have the number one international player, position player. Pitching wise, you could debate different people, but I think you have the two best international position players in baseball showcased in the World Series. Shohei Ohtani for the Dodgers, Vlad Jr., Guerrero Jr. for the Blue Jays. Any argument there?
No, I don't really have a whole lot of argument for that. Shohei Ohtani obviously speaks for himself with his international appeal and what his appeal is just for the game of baseball in general. But I think it often gets underrated just how much of an impact, especially for the country of Canada, Vlad Jr. has. Obviously, with the history of his father being a Montreal Expo for a long time, and now you have Vlad Jr., who's one of the best players in the game of baseball, one of the best pure hitters in the game of baseball, taking the lead for the Toronto Blue Jays, the one team that is remaining in Canada. I think he has a huge international appeal for there. So obviously this is going to be a big deal for the United States, who is the home of a majority of baseball teams and the home to the Los Angeles Dodgers. But you also have a ton of appeal from Japan because of Shohei Ohtani and the international draw that he has, and combined with the international appeal that you have in Canada, not just because the Blue Jays are in the World Series, but because of what Vlad Jr. means to them. This is going to be a massive World Series, similar to what it was last year when you had the two of the most historic franchises in the game of baseball colliding with each other. Now you have two of the best international markets of franchises going after each other. Major League Baseball has to be loving this.
We're going to disagree on this, I think. But the long layoff, I think definitely both teams are going to have long layoffs. Mm-hmm. Somewhat for the game of baseball, it's a long layoff.
Yep.
More so for the Dodgers than the Blue Jays. But I think the layoff will favor the Dodgers better, and that's because the Dodgers, believe it or not, the Dodgers are going into a series to where their bullpen has actually been better than their opponent, and the starting pitching is dominant. So whenever you're talking about a long layoff, where you usually see that manifest itself is offensively, where you have the offensive guys struggle to get the rhythm back, and the Dodgers haven't hit anyways. Right? I mean, in game one, they just haven't hit. I'll get to some of the numbers. As a matter of fact, they scored just 2 runs in game one. They scored just 3 runs in game 3. So the Dodgers have been winning without hitting anyways. The Dodgers have had absolutely dominant starting pitching, an ERA of 140 in the postseason, gave up, So I think the long layoff favors the team that pitches better because it gives their offense more time to get the rhythm underneath them. So I think the layoff favors the Dodgers.
Yeah, and it's a fair evaluation if that's what you believe, especially if it's whose starting pitchers are going to be better. I think clearly there is an advantage for the Dodgers because of their 4 incredible starters that are going to throw out there. Blake Snell in game 1, Yoshinobu Yamamoto in game 2, Tyler Glasnow in game 3, and Shohei Ohtani in game 4. That is almost impossible to be able to beat. And Toronto just doesn't have the exact same high level of pitching to be able to match this. Where I provide a little bit of caution, and this is what I talked a little bit on the show about yesterday. It has to do with some of the historic trends that we've seen from the amount of rest teams get off between sweeping the league championship series and going on to the World Series. And what I had talked about before is since 1985, when the league championship series switched from a best of 5 to a best of 7 series, there has been 10 teams that have swept the league championship series, and only 3 of those teams have ended up winning the World Series. And the 3 teams that have won those World Series, it has gone at least 6 to 7 games. And the reason why it's gone that far for these teams, or why teams have struggled, is because the long layoff, as you had mentioned, does impact the hitters.
Is that because their league was just not as good as the other league waiting?
It could potentially be some of that, but you're talking about some teams like the 1988 A's, who are a phenomenal baseball team. They ended up losing to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who, when the A's were a juggernaut. There's also the 90 A's that were part of this list. The Braves in 95 ended up winning, but the 2006 Detroit Tigers lost to an 83 win Cardinals team. It's very difficult to be able to say that all of these teams are inferior that swept the league championship series. And the reason why a lot of these teams historically that have swept the league championship series have lost in the World Series is because their offense just went through a dramatic underperformance from what they did in the course of the regular season, averaging a run and a half less per game in those 10 series from what they had performed during the course of the regular season. So this is not to say that the Dodgers are at a disadvantage in this series, because I believe that the Dodgers are and should be the favorite in this series because of the superior pitching that they have, and because their offense, at least depending on which numbers that you look at, especially if you look at the regular season numbers and with the players that are actually, what the regular season numbers for the players that are actually going to be on the postseason roster, I think the Dodgers offense directly matches up with the Toronto Blue Jays. But it is very possible, and I would proceed this with caution, even though the Dodgers were able to advance with the layoff and do well last year, there is going to be 6 full days in which the Dodgers are going in between having not played a single playoff game, whereas the Toronto Blue Jays have 3 days off. Might not. So there is a gap that is between there that is greater for the Dodgers that could potentially impact their offense as a whole, which only means that there should be at least a little bit of caution going forward because of historical trends. Now, that being said, the Dodgers pitching is absolutely phenomenal, to where their offense might not have to explode to as many runs as they would technically need to, or what they would anticipate needing for the course of the regular season. But I would still expect or anticipate perhaps a little bit of a struggle getting forward, just because we've seen that each and every single time there has been this layoff for teams going from sweeping the league championship series to the World Series.
Okay, so Dennis Eckersley was the closer for that A's team. So the starters were Rick Honeycutt, our very own Rick Honeycutt that I got to interview this summer. Mike Moore, obviously Dave Stewart was the stalwart. That Bob Welch got some starts. Scott Sanderson, that was the start. I mean, so yes, the A's were good because the reason the A's were good was because they had Terry Steinbach catching. They had obviously Jose Canseco. They had Mark McGuire. They had Dave Parker. They had guys that thumped, right?
Yep.
So their identity was offense, and then specifically power offense, which that would make sense that a layoff is going to affect that team. The Dodgers' identity right now, squarely put, is pitching, of which that layoff shouldn't affect pitching whatsoever. So I don't think, I think those are fun numbers to talk about in terms of historic happenings as far as layoffs go and how teams have done. But I think if you're built on pitching versus the team that's built on hitting, I don't think there's a comparison to be made there.
I will say it's fair to say if the team's main identity is built on offense, this could impact them more. What I am saying,
which team actually was built on pitching during that period, Austin?
That's a good question. I was not around for that.
Well, it was John Smoltz, it was Tom Glavine, it was Steve Avery, it was the Braves were exactly what the Dodgers are right now in terms of having. And the Dodgers actually are better. They were kind of they had Smoltz, they had Glavine, they had Greg Maddux, they had Steve Avery so the Braves, yes, they had Ron Gant, yes, they had David Justice, yes, they had Terry Pendleton. They had Jeff Blauser. They had some good They had some good position players, but squarely put, the Braves were built around pitching. So the one team that you mentioned that had the layoff that actually won, that one team that won, they were actually built around their pitching, which goes to what I'm saying is the layoff goes to the team that's built more around their pitching than it is the offense, which is why I go back to saying the layoff should favor the Dodgers. Having said that, like Coach Holt always says, best laid plans usually go to hell in baseball, right?
And my point for doing this was not to say that's going to impact the pitching. My point is to say this is likely to impact the offense in some way, shape, or form. And I think the pitching is good enough to be able to overcome that, which is why I still favor the Dodgers. But I think there historically has been and likely will continue to be, unless the Dodgers completely buck the trends, be some sort of impact that the offense undergoes because of the layoff.
Yeah, 100%. This is a great conversation. We're going to have a bunch of good talking points tonight. So unbelievably, I know Dodgers fans won't believe this, the Dodgers are entering into the World Series with a better postseason bullpen than their opponent. So the bullpen ERAs this postseason for the Blue Jays, 5.52, 4.88 for the Dodgers. Neither one of them are very good, but I think if you were to say, hey, what is the biggest weakness for the Dodgers, I think everybody would say bullpen, especially the actual bullpen arms, not whenever like you're moving a starter into the bullpen. So that's not even a weakness when compared to the Blue Jays coming into this series. The Dodgers bullpen has been better. Their starting pitching has been better. The Blue Jays don't even have a left-handed starting pitcher, and their three lefties that are in the pen have absolutely been toast in the postseason. The three lefties combined have an ERA over 10 in the pen for the Blue Jays. What scares me about this series is that so many things indicate that this should be a cakewalk for the Dodgers that just my baseball brain says that's a trap.
Yeah, that is something that can be worrisome. So let's break down a little bit the Toronto Blue Jays and their bullpen because starting pitching wise, I think there's a clear advantage for the Dodgers. We mentioned who the Dodgers starters are. Everybody knows who they are. For the Blue Jays side of things, they do have Kevin Gausman, really solid starting pitcher, really good pitcher for them. Trey Savage is a young guy who's come up and absolutely rose through the ranks. They also have Shane Bieber and Max Scherzer, both solid starters, but and you compare them to some of the numbers that the Dodgers have there, are not quite comparable, especially with dealing with some injuries recently for both of them. When we get to the actual Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, the main thing that they have as a bullpen is they've got some guys that can get some swinging miss stuff out of the bullpen. Louis Varland has been used a ton for the Toronto Blue Jays.
You know who Louis' brother is?
Oh, it's Gus Varland.
The Gus Bus.
Yeah, good friend Gus Varland. Louis Varland has been used a ton during this postseason, and he's had a really good season for them. 2.97 ERA, gets a decent amount of swing and miss, but you're talking about a lot of other guys that get a lot of swing and miss. Jeff Hoffman, who came in and closed the game, gets a ton of swing and miss, 29% strikeout percentage on the season. Sir Anthony Dominguez, who we talked a little bit about during the trade deadline portion of things, gets a 30% strikeout percentage on the season. We're talking about Brendan Little, who's one of their lefties who had a really good start of the season, has really struggled during the second half of the season, wild, inconsistent, but still gets 31% strikeout percentage. And then our friend Braden Fisher is part of this bullpen, gets a 30% strikeout percentage on the season. They have a lot of swing and miss, but they also have a lot of guys that are a little bit more wild and don't have as much control, which I think we've seen a lot of that during the course of the postseason with a lot of these arms. A lot of these arms are underperforming what they did during the course of the regular season. Yariel Rodriguez struggling quite a bit during the course of the postseason, a 10 ERA for him. Brendan Little did not have a good performance, a 12 ERA for him. Braden Fisher has struggled during the postseason. Mason Fluharty, one of the other lefties, has struggled during the postseason. Eric Lauder, one of the guys that they've utilized as a starter, one of their other lefties that they got a 9 ERA during the course of the postseason. So they have a lot of guys that are struggling as part of their bullpen, which means their trust tree as a bullpen is small, similar to the Dodgers trust tree out of their bullpen right now is small. And you could even argue that some of they have less trust perhaps than what the Dodgers even have because of the way they utilize some of their guys out of the bullpen in the series against the Mariners. Louis Varland was used just about every single game, and I would anticipate him to be utilized in a lot of similar situations going forward for the Blue Jays. A lot of the other guys that they had mentioned are going to utilize in big situations. But what stands out to me perhaps most is some of the guys that are more high leverage struggled quite a bit against left-handed pitching. Jeff Hoffman, if we're looking at what he did throughout the course of the regular season, there's a vast difference in what his weighted on-base average, we're going to use a little bit of fun stat, weighted on-base average, essentially putting some sort of weights to on-base percentage, meaning home runs better than singles. There is a vast difference between his weighted on-base average against righties, which he's much better at, than against lefties. A 299 against righties, 341 against lefties. Sir Anthony Dominguez, really bad against lefties, a 353 WOBA against left-handed hit or against lefties. Yariel Rodriguez, not good against lefties. Louis Varland is a little bit worse against lefties, although he has been pretty solid, which means, and even Chris Bassett, who is a starter that they use out of the bullpen, struggles against lefties, which means there's a lot of guys out of this bullpen that struggle against left-handed hitters.
And they don't even have a left-handed starting pitcher.
They don't have a left-handed starting pitcher. Also, some of the lefties that they have had come out of their bullpen have struggled, as you mentioned, throughout the course of the postseason, which means there's going to be ample opportunity for guys like a Shohei Ohtani, like a Freddie Freeman.
He might just go off the moon, right? I mean, this stands for him to do that.
There is a real opportunity for him to be able to do so because there is going to be matchup advantages. Whereas if they would have faced the Seattle Mariners, he would have had to face Gabe Speier at least once every single game. There is not that immediate threat. Now, Brendan Little has been somebody who has had a lot of success throughout the course of the regular season. And if you look at his regular season numbers, they're actually really solid. Doesn't throw a whole lot of strikes, or at least 15% walk percentage for him. Struggled more at the second half and has struggled throughout the course of the postseason. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for the Dodgers. Freeman, Muncy, Shohei, some of these left-handed hitters for the Dodgers to be able to take advantage of some of the Toronto Blue Jays matchups that they are going to be able to throw, because their trust tree is mostly right-handed pitchers coming out of the bullpen that struggle against left-handed hitters, which I think could be a real advantage for the Dodgers.
Michael Conforto against lefties, 246, OPS 757, which is respectable. It's not great. It's way better than he did against right-handers, with the Blue Jays not having any left-handed starters, with their three lefties out of the pen, with an ERA over 10 in the postseason. Is there any chance we see Michael Conforto on this roster just because he's left-handed?
I probably wouldn't anticipate it, especially because of the state of where the roster is at right now. I think they are pretty comfortable with things they're at right now. I think the only potential spot that he could fill in is either for an Alex Call or for a Ha-Seong Kim. I think Justin Deem is firmly planted onto this roster because you've seen the Dodgers utilize him just about every single game in the postseason as a defensive replacement in the outfield. And for Michael Conforto, he has not been, as far as I'm during the course of the postseason, taking any sort of plate appearances for the Dodgers. And who would he actually go in for during the course of the postseason? I don't think there's a whole lot of pinch hit situations that the Dodgers take advantage of as opposed to other teams. There is much more of a need for the Dodgers, at least from what they have done, and making sure that the defense is solid late in games, which is why they prioritize a guy like a Justin Dean coming into the game.
How do you beat Kevin Gossman's splitter? Gossman is very good. I mean, if you look at his baseball savant numbers, pitching run value, fastball run value. Actually, let me just go ahead and flip this over, and we can just all kind of look at it at the same time, and we can get after it. You can see his numbers are red right here. I mean, Gossman's good, and his extension's good. His base on ball percentage is good. He gets a lot of chase, and he gets a lot of chase on that splitter, which he throws 37% of the time. But here's what I want you to see. 32% end zone with that splitter. The Dodgers will spit on that pitch. The Dodgers are more disciplined than the Mariners. Part of the problem the Mariners had is that they weren't disciplined enough to lay off some of the chase stuff that the Blue Jays threw up there. The Dodgers will not be that team. If you throw 32% strikes up there with any pitch, the Dodgers will not let you beat them, at least if things go the way it normally does. So how do you neutralize that splitter? You don't swing at it.
Yep, and that's going to be one of the biggest things for the Dodgers as far as keys to the series is just to be disciplined as an offensive unit.
Correct.
The Toronto Blue Jays have walked a lot of hitters as a unit, even if we're just taking into account the pitchers that are part of the postseason roster, meaning we just take the guys that are on the postseason roster for the Blue Jays and not really worry about the overall full season stats for the Blue Jays as a pitching staff. It's still an 8.5 walk percentage. And if we look at the postseason, it's risen to about 10.5% for Toronto in the postseason. If they stay disciplined as a unit, as an offense, which that already is in the fundamental identity of the Los Angeles Dodgers as an offense, if they stay disciplined as a unit, I think they can really take advantage because they have a lot of guys out of the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen that walk a whole lot of hitters. Kevin Gausman doesn't give up a whole lot of walks. But if the Dodgers can be extra disciplined with him and just fight off pitches and work different counts like we know the Dodgers offense can do, I think that it can be something that they could take advantage of that, or at least get it to where they get into the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen.
So you see here, his splitter has the highest swing and miss percentage, and that's followed by a slider, 2 pitches that if you flip this right here and you go to end zone percent, those are 2 of his lowest pitches that he actually throws for a strike. So that goes to show you right there. The game plan for Kevin Gausman, see the fastball up. Don't let him, don't swing at it above the zone, but specifically see everything that he throws up in the zone. And, don't let him, he's going to run that sinker in on your hands and try to buzzsaw you to try to make some sawdust out of your bat. So you got to be careful of that. But basically, it comes down to can you hit the fastballs, not swing at the slider, not swing at the split finger, force him to throw strikes with those 2 secondary pitches, of which he just simply has not done at a very high clip. I think that's the trick against him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And good thing for the Dodgers as a team, as a unit, they have one of the lower or better chase percentages, meaning that they don't chase quite as much as an offensive unit, whether you look at that throughout the full regular season.
Yeah, they're just like the Brewers, but with more power, kind of.
They are like the Brewers, except the Dodgers have a lot of power behind them to be able to go ahead and hit for some power, which means they can take advantage of some mistakes that the pitchers are going to give up to them.
Okay, so I went on and on and on about how good the Brewers were in our NLCS pre-series show, right? And rightfully so. The Brewers had been the best team in the National League, and hey, the Dodgers overpowered them. It is what it is, and I think if you replay that series 100 times, I think you get, if the Dodgers play well, like pitch the way they did, I think you get probably the same results every single time with the roster the Dodgers put out there. That was not a fluke. That was just the Dodgers pitchers being better than the Milwaukee hitters. And we came to find out, other than Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who had the meltdown in Milwaukee on July 7th, that, the reason why Milwaukee beat the Dodgers at 6 games in the regular season, because they didn't have to face any of the pitching that they saw in the postseason, certainly not to the level and to the length that they saw it. So I think if you played that series over 100 different times, it's going to come out. Maybe the Brewers win a game or 2, but the Dodgers are going to win that 100 times out of 100 just based off the pitching alone if they pitched the way they did. Okay, so I went on and on and on about how good the Brewers are. They can do this. They're disciplined. They're going to get on. They're going to get over. They're going to get in. They're going to play fundamental. They're going to be pesky. They're going to be all this. They're going to be kind of kryptonic for the Dodgers, this and that, and then the Dodgers go kick their ass. So here I am looking at all these keys, and I'm thinking, damn, the Dodgers are going to kick the Blue Jays' ass. So I'm on the exact opposite end of this, and my brain is thinking, well, if I thought the Dodgers were going to have a tough time with the Brewers and they didn't, now if I think they're going to have an easy time with the Jays, that means they're going to have a tough time. Talk me out of that, Austin. Get me out of my cocky mode.
It's very difficult to be able to talk you out of this, because as an offensive identity from the Blue Jays, they're a little bit different from what the Brewers are. Now, the Blue Jays, if you look at their offensive identity and what are the players that they go out and target, there's one specific area in which the Blue Jays are superior to every single other team in Major League Baseball. they do not strike out. You're talking about as a team, as a unit that has a 17.8% strikeout percentage on the season. You look at
what was the Brewers coming in? Do you know?
The Brewers, I don't necessarily know. The biggest thing about the Brewers is they just didn't swing a whole lot. Their swing percentage was the lowest in Major League Baseball. But when we're talking about the Blue Jays, they're going to be a team that's going to be a little bit more aggressive at the plate and swing a little bit more because their strikeout percentage is lower than every single other team in Major League Baseball.
20.3%.
So the Blue Jays have a lower strikeout percentage than them.
What
just
is the Blue
like
Jays, 17?
Or the Blue Jays have lower strikeout percentage than every single other team in Major League Baseball. You look at the players that are currently on the postseason roster for the Toronto Blue Jays, it's even lower than what the regular season is at 17.2%. This postseason, it's sub 15%. Which means the Blue Jays, the reason why they've had so much success as an offensive unit is they put the ball in play a ton, and they have dramatically overperformed what they did during the regular season in the power component. Now, this becomes a real question when evaluating this Blue Jays offense is, do you believe that this power stroke that the Blue Jays have recently found in the postseason, which as a team, they've hit 20 home runs in the postseason, a 227 ISO, that is significantly higher than their regular season isolated power, which sits at 162. Do you believe that their power is going to continue going forward during the postseason? Or do you believe with the Dodgers as a pitching staff, which is going to likely in this series, because the Blue Jays don't strike out as much, going to have to rely on more contact-oriented type approach? Do you think they would do you think they're going to have the same amount of success if they're not going to get the same level of swing and miss, because the Blue Jays as a unit aren't going to generate or aren't going to swing and miss as much as other teams are, or aren't going to try to work the count as much as, for example, a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, who as a unit likes to work the count a little bit more. Blue Jays as an offense is not going to swing and miss as much, or at least the numbers showcase that they're not going to swing and miss as much, which means that the Dodgers are going to have to rely a little bit more on getting some soft contact, getting some of those ground balls, not allowing the big power numbers to be able to pop up for the Blue Jays, which is why the Blue Jays are in the World Series, is because they've combined their limited strikeouts with a new wave of power in this postseason. The question is for the Toronto Blue Jays is, are the players that are dramatically overperforming what they did during the regular season going to continue this performance, or are they going to drop back down? If they continue to overperform what they did in the postseason, we've got a real series on our hand. If they drop back down to what they did during the course of the regular season, the Dodgers have a big advantage in just about every single asset in this series, aside from defense and maybe a marginal advantage in the bullpen.
So, okay, you're seeing the numbers here on the screen, and yes, the power numbers have surged in the postseason, but you want to know why. You can literally trace it down to two guys. Ernie Clement, who is 1063 OPS in the post. He's hitting 429. Vlad Guerrero has hit 6 home runs in the postseason by himself, right? So if you just don't let Vlad Guerrero beat you, so if you take away, so if the Dodgers say Vlad Guerrero's not beating us, that's the difference between the Dodgers and other teams. Is like if you say, okay, Shohei Ohtani's not going to beat us. Well, hell, Mookie Betts is beaten. Every time somebody walks Shohei Ohtani on purpose, Mookie Betts has like an 800 batting average after that, right? So my point to even the slug part of the Toronto Blue Jays is almost all of it has come from one person. If you want to add Ernie Clement into that as well. So I think if you say don't let Vlad Guerrero beat you, Bo Bichette is coming back, but who knows how his timing will be offensively. I think if you eliminate the offensive Vladimir Guerrero from the Blue Jays lineup, boy, they become really pedestrian really fast. Am I wrong?
Yes, and if you actually go to the tab that says Blue Jays offense postseason, and this is a really key component, I think something that you had mentioned, and this goes to show you some of the overperformance that the Toronto Blue Jays have had, which, by the way, the link should be in the comment section right now. I don't know if Casey wants to
I'll do that right now. I've already done it once. I'll do it again.
Yeah, we can put that back in there so you can actually evaluate these numbers for yourselves as well. So if you look at the Blue Jays offense during the course of the postseason, what I have broken down is full season, second half, and postseason WRC plus. And what you'll notice is Vlad Jr. obviously is stepping up to the occasion. 280 WRC plus during the postseason. That's 143 points higher than what he did during the regular season. But there are some other players that stand out quite a bit. That's the other
one, yeah.
Yes, Ernie Clement is hitting 97, has a WRC plus 97 points higher than what he did during the course of the regular season. Addison Barger, 42 points higher than what it did during the course of the regular
Barger's
season.
Streaky. He's always been streaky.
Yeah. Andres Jimenez, 44 points higher than what it was during the course of the regular season. Nathan Lucas, 22 points higher than what it was throughout the course of the regular season. A lot of the players that are underperforming by no more than 20 points as a unit, which means that you're getting a lot of overperformance as an offensive unit, which has led to the Toronto Blue Jays looking like this postseason offensive juggernaut. So this comes to a really serious question that we have as far as going forward and as far as our evaluation, as far as where these teams are at. What do you put more stock in? Do you put more stock in what the team did during the course of the full regular season, meaning the entire roster that the Toronto Blue Jays had, looking at that and making an evaluation from that, because that is the largest sample size that you have? Do you look at the players that are currently on the postseason roster, look at their full season stats and make an evaluation from that and say that is the team that you're going to get in the World Series? Or do you look at the team that has played, 11 postseason games, and just the number during the postseason games, that's the numbers that's going to come at? Because the real question about the Toronto Blue Jays and their offense is, are we going to get the playoff version of the Toronto Blue Jays offense, which has hit at a 143 WRC plus, a near 300 batting average type team that has hit for power and has not struck out? Or are we going to get a reversion back to the mean for the Toronto Blue Jays to where they're hitting a little bit above league average? If you're looking at the players on the World Series roster, 114 WRC plus, maybe a little bit higher if we throw in Bo Bichette as part of that mix, but you might see some negative regression. So the question becomes, as far as the players that are overperforming, Ernie Clement, Addison Barger, Andres Jimenez, Nathan Lucas, not even taking into account Vlad Jr., who I still think is going to be incredible during the course of the World Series, and that's going to be an absolute pain for the Dodgers to deal with. Do you believe that those players are going to continue with their overperformance, or do you anticipate some sort of regression back to the mean? I think if they continue their overperformance, this Blue Jays offense is going to has a chance to be able to go absolutely off and score some runs, even against this very talented Dodgers pitching
Hot
staff.
take.
That is, if they continue to go out there and perform the way that they did. And that's just taking into account the results that they have. That is not a prediction, because my prediction and my sense and reason why I was leaning a little bit more to wanting a Toronto Dodgers World Series matchup as opposed to a Seattle Dodgers World Series matchup is because there is less room to grow if you are Blue Jays, because some of these guys are dramatically overperforming what they did in the course of the regular season, whereas the Mariners as an offensive unit were dramatically underperforming what they were capable of. So the question is, are the Blue Jays going to continue to overperform as an offensive unit, or are they going to regress back to the mean? If they regress back to the mean, it's very difficult to say that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to win this World Series. If they continue to overperform as an offensive unit, they have a chance.
If they overperform, they might give the Dodgers a decent series. If they regress to the mean, they're going to get their asses kicked. That's the way I would put that. And then also, okay, how many of these postseason stats have been compiled against the Dodgers pitching?
0 so far.
Yeah, they haven't seen the Dodgers pitching. This is where I'm so confident, and I need you to walk me. You're trying to walk me off the confidence ledge here, and it's hard for whenever I get my stubborn confidence going, it's hard for anybody to talk me out of confidence.
Yep.
But when you say regression to the mean, I don't know how anybody couldn't predict not only Toronto regressing to their mean against the Dodgers pitchers, which are the best in baseball. The Dodgers have 5, 6, probably 6 starters that would be the number one starter for the Toronto Blue Jays, right? I mean, they definitely have 4 to 5 guys that would be the number one starter for Toronto. So when you say, are they going to regress to the mean? Well, hell yes, they're going to regress to the mean. First of all, because it's baseball and just the odds would say you regress to the mean. That's number one. But then even if you didn't want to go with that, you want to say, well, That doesn't mean the odds will catch up next series. That's just kind of over the long haul. Well, hell yes, they're going to regress to the mean, probably way lower than that. And it doesn't have anything to do with regressing to the mean. It has to do with the fact that the Dodgers pitchers and pitching beats good pitching beats good hitting every day and twice on Sundays. They're going to regress because of who they're facing on the opposite mound that they have not seen to this point. So those numbers, they're awesome numbers. I'm glad that they've been doing well in the postseason. I have my doubts how well they translate versus Dodgers pitching.
And there's very real reason to be able to doubt that, because if we look at what the Dodgers pitching did against the Milwaukee Brewers, and this is one of my favorite stats to come out of this postseason, the Milwaukee Brewers as an offense against the Dodgers pitchers in the league championship series, which was a massive struggle for the Brewers, had an 8 WRC plus, not an 80, not an 18, an 8 WRC plus. That was what the Dodgers pitching did against the Milwaukee Brewers. So the question becomes for you as a unit, if you're anticipating the Dodgers to go out there and continue to have some success, and I'm anticipating the Dodgers as a pitching staff to go out there and have some success. Now, there could be some batted ball luck that goes the Blue Jays' way because they're going to put the ball in play a ton.
Maybe.
If we look at,
I thought the Brewers were going to do that too, and they didn't.
They did not. They struck out at a 31% clip during the course of the series with.
And
the
I
Dodgers.
get it. They go about it different ways. The Brewers take more pitches. The Blue Jays are just better at actual bat to ball skills.
Yep, and it is still going to be on the Dodgers pitchers to be able to go out there and execute, to be able to, when the Blue Jays put the ball in play, get weak contact as opposed to some of the base hits. They're going to have to be executing, which is hard to doubt the Dodgers, especially their starters, and their ability to go out there and execute. And so that means if you have confidence in the Dodgers pitchers going out there to be able to do well, because there's two sides of the coin that you need in order to win postseason games, that means that your offense has to go out there and be able to score runs, which is the only reason why I bring up what has happened when teams have swept during the course of the league championship series, is because the Dodgers as an offense still has to be able to show up and still has to be able to score more runs than the Toronto Blue Jays, which I still have a lot of confidence that the Dodgers are going to be able to do so. And with the pitching that, especially the starters that the Dodgers have, I think they are superior enough to where I'm not as concerned as much about the number of runs that the Dodgers need, because I think the pitching is going to keep the score of Toronto a little bit low.
100%. So if I were to ask you, Dodgers sweep, Blue Jays win, which one would you give better odds to?
As far as Blue Jays win the series or Dodgers sweep?
Yeah.
I would give the better odds to the Dodgers sweeping, but that would not be my prediction in the series.
No. But I think it's more, I think the Dodgers are substantially the better team to the point to where, and again, I'm getting cocky here, which means I'm probably, every time, I'm just telling you, I've been in this game long enough. Every time that you test this game with arrogance, like I'm approaching this show, I know it, guys. I know. I can't help it, though. It's just where I'm at right now in my mind, and I'm trying to use this show. I'm trying to use you, Austin, to get me out of my arrogant state of mind right here, because I know honestly, this is going to sound really stupid, Austin. The biggest concern that I have with this series is that just the baseball god aspect of it. Every time it looks like things are set up perfectly and that you should win and it shouldn't really be that big of an issue, and you get arrogant like that, the game of baseball, there's a saying, Max Hewitt taught me this, Oklahoma State baseball abides by this. In the game of baseball, you're either humble or you're getting ready to be humbled. Yep. And so literally, probably my only fear right now is that I'm too arrogant.
I think it is fair enough to be able to state that, given the prowess, given the reputation that the Dodgers have, and given the experience that they have, that they should be able to go out there and win this type of series. They should be able to go out there and have a whole lot of success. And with the lessons that this unit has had to learn over the course of past postseasons, I would anticipate the club to be able to go out there to be as prepared as they possibly can, and for the starting pitching to go out there and perform incredibly well. It is what happens if one of the starters doesn't do so well during an outing? What happens if the Blue Jays start to get a couple of base hits together? Are the Dodgers able to take advantage of all of that and be able to rebound? I believe that the Dodgers are going to be able to do, and I think that as a unit, they're going to have some success. But the Blue Jays, there's a reason why the Blue Jays are in the World Series. It's because they have a ton of
They're
talent.
damn good.
As a
And
unit.
they're getting
They're
Bo
really
Bichette
good.
back, by the way.
They're getting Bo Bichette, who's a great hitter. George Springer, as much as Dodgers fans hate him, is a tremendous, absolutely tremendous postseason hitter who we can
Always has
almost
been.
guarantee you he's
wore
going to
out the
hit
Blue
at least one home run for the Blue Jays during the course of this postseason, because that's what he does every single series he's at in the postseason. Vlad Jr. is an incredible hitter, and some of the hitters that they have as part of their unit are really hot right now. And they have a shorter layoff from when the League Championship Series was to the World Series, which means because they are hitting really well during the course of the postseason, there is a chance that that is going to be able to continue, which is why I ask, is the bet going to be, and depending on what this happens, is going to help determine the fate of the Toronto Blue Jays? Are the players that are hot right now for the Blue Jays, that are stepping up more than what they did during the course of the regular season, going to continue to be hot going into the World Series against even better pitching? The Mariners had really good pitching. The Dodgers have even better pitching, especially when it comes out of the starting pitcher realm. So that's going to be the main question. And then for the Blue Jays, can they rely upon some of the guys that they have in the bullpen? And with the workload that especially guys like Louis Varland has been taking upon himself, are they going to miss out on some of the guys, especially the guys that can pitch well against left-handed pitching? Are some of those guys going to be able to step up in some of these moments?
Talking about left-handed hitters?
I'm talking about the pitching bullpen side. For the Toronto Blue Jays.
Some of their
guys.
bullpen arms that can throw well against left-handed hitters, I think is what you're saying.
Yes. Are some of those guys going to be able to go out there and have some success, like a Louis Varland, who has been utilized a ton? Is Brendan Little going to be able to refine some of his form that he had to where he put up good regular season numbers? And if you look at his Baseball Savant page, there's a lot of great stuff that is in his page. They're going to need guys like him in order to have some success against the powerful left-handed bats of the Dodgers. And then for the Dodgers, is there going to be a massive impact that this layoff is going to have on the offense, because layoff interrupts some of the swing of things that you have as an offensive unit?
Yeah, it interrupts hey, you get live at bats. You know, I'm sure like Bobby Miller and Kyle Hurt and all those guys are at Dodger Stadium, and they're getting plenty of live at bats against major league caliber stuff. So it's not necessarily the reps. It's the adrenaline. It's the environment around you. You're not able to do. I mean, it's practice. You know, I mean, it's like Allen Iverson said, practice. You know, one of those deals. It's a totally different environment, hitting in a cage with nobody at Dodger Stadium versus a World Series environment. So that's a factor there. But we have a $2 super chat from Mike Lopez. Mike, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your wonderful support. Are the Dodgers expecting any arms back in the bullpen? Do you expect the Dodgers to swap anybody out pitching-wise, or add a pitcher, subtract a position player, or do you expect the roster to be the exact same?
I've been thinking about this over the past couple of days. Right now, I still lean that the roster is going to remain the same. I think there's a possibility that they could add somebody, and I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, but add potentially somebody like a Tanner Scott, just because that seems to be something that the organization potentially could do. As far as the position player side-wise, there's a lot of talk. I've mentioned about Michael Conforto. I'm not anticipating that because I don't see a massive role for him on the postseason roster that is larger even than what some of the other guys that are on the roster is
even
going
as a
to
lefty.
be. Even as a lefty, I still very highly doubt that, especially without any postseason reps at all. And I think the main takeaway that we have, and this is dating back to the Cincinnati Reds series, the short series that they had against the Reds had almost exclusively right-handed pitchers, and the only lefty that they had, I believe, was Nick Lodolo that came out of the bullpen, which means
they did not use Lodolo right, by the way.
And that's when the Dodgers had 15 position players, not 14, 15 position players against all righties, and they did not utilize Michael Conforto in that series. So I'm not anticipating in this series, where there is a couple of lefties, there's a lot of guys that do not do well against left-handed hitters, but Michael Conforto has not been getting reps recently on the major league side of things during the postseason at all. It's hard for me to be able to say that they're going to utilize him in this specific series because I think they like where their matchups are at, and I think they like utilizing some of the role players, some of the bench guys in some of the roles that they're utilizing, like Justin Dean, or potentially having a Ha-Seong Kim to be a pinch runner to come off the bench as well in certain situations. I don't anticipate the position player makeup to be able to change a whole lot, nor am I really anticipating them straying away from having 14 position players to 12 pitchers. And so the question becomes, do you believe that the 12 pitchers on the roster are going to stay exactly the same? And there's some question to that because they didn't utilize all their guys during the championship series. I don't think they utilized Dreyer, Robleski, Kasperius, any of those guys.
Well, they swept them. I mean, it was easy.
And it was easy to be able to do so. But even throughout the course of the postseason, Kasperius, even though he was just on that one series, hasn't pitched at all. Robo hasn't pitched at all. There's some of these guys that they have not utilized at all. So that could be a little bit of a question, but I'm not really anticipating a whole lot of change. But it's going to be decided, and perhaps if we hear some more things coming out of Dodgers camp that could change some things, that could change my opinion a little bit. If it is Tanner Scott, my expectation, because of some of the balance that the Blue Jays would have, was that would have to probably come in replacement of a Justin Robleski, which I don't know if they're going to make that move at this point. It's obviously dependent on how both of those guys are throwing, which we have not seen them throw since the regular season.
The Dodgers by far have the better starting pitching. They have the longer lineup. I think, the Dodgers have about 2 or 3 Vlad Guerrero Jr. type guys that can take games over, including even a Teo Hernandez. Mm-hmm. I mean, Teo Hernandez, Vlad Guerrero Jr. a better player than Teo? Yes. But can Teo duplicate what Vlad Guerrero Jr. can do in a game by really kind of taking a game over and dominating a game? Yes, absolutely can. So can Max Muncy. So can Will Smith. So can Freddie Freeman. So can Mookie Betts. So can Shohei Ohtani. And then even we've seen Andy Paez, if he gets hot. Tommy Edman can drive in 3 or 4 runs a game. So the Dodgers, not only do they have a better offense, they have a lengthier offense, and then they have better matchups because the Blue Jays don't have any left-handed starting pitchers. They're lefties in the pen. ERA over 10 in the postseason. Not only do the Dodgers have a better offense, a longer lineup, they also have better matchups in this series offensively than the Blue Jays. They have way better starters, and their bullpen in the postseason has been better than the Blue Jays. I mean, there's just no place that you can analyze this series to say, hey, and they have the home field advantage, by the way. So
the Blue Jays have the home field advantage.
Okay, so there's one for the Blue Jays. Yeah. Sorry about that. So there's really, other than home field advantage, which the Dodgers haven't, that hasn't been an issue whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They went into the hardest home field advantage in baseball in Philadelphia and won and had no problems. Where in the world do you look at this series and say the Blue Jays have an advantage and this is why they could win? I just don't see it anywhere.
The Blue Jays as a team have played some pretty fundamentally sound defense. That is going to be something that they're going to be able to do. They're going to put the ball in play, and their offense is hot. That really is the main takeaways if you're directly comparing the Blue Jays to the Dodgers, which means if they put the ball in play and they get some of their batted ball luck and they keep the score low, their pitching staff is and can be capable of going out and keeping the score a little bit low. They do have some guys that can get some swing and miss, which especially against the Dodgers that have a little bit swing and miss. Max Muncy swings and misses. Teoscar Hernandez, for as good as he can be, swings and misses quite a bit. Andy Paez has swung and missed quite a bit during the course of the postseason. Even Shohei Ohtani has some swing and miss in his bat. The Dodgers have some holes as far as getting some swing and miss, which means that even in situations where the Blue Jays walk a couple of guys, they can get some swing and miss out of their bullpen. And if they do that and they keep some of the score a little bit low and get some of the batted ball luck, or if they continue the power stroke that they have, which on paper, the Dodgers have a better, deeper offense, but the Blue Jays right now have a hotter offense right now that is performing better right now, which could be something that could be an advantage. I'm not anticipating that to continue to be an advantage because they have a lot of unproven players when it comes to postseason, especially World Series type of performance. Not a lot of these guys, with the exception, I think, of a George Springer, has been to the World Series before, which means this is going to be a brand new challenge, brand new pressure type of situation for the Toronto Blue Jays to be able to overcome. That being said, the Blue Jays as a team, they were able to overcome a 2-0 deficit when they were trailing and had home field advantage against the Seattle Mariners and be able to overcome that, something that rarely has been done in postseason history. So there's a lot of fight within the Blue Jays. So if the expectation is the Blue Jays look at this matchup on paper and just fall down, they just they understand who the Dodgers are at and like, yeah, we got nothing for this. They're going to show up, which I know we said that about the Milwaukee series, but it remains true. And you have to have a sense of humbleness and you have to have a sense of respect for your opponent. Otherwise, the opponent will take advantage of you, which I think is a really good mindset and something that I think Mookie Betts had stated, just giving credit to the Brewers for what they had did over the course of the regular season, just talking about how good they had been for that and how they had beat the Dodgers quite a bit. I think it's that humbleness approach, but also an understanding of what it actually takes to be able to win these type of games, to be able to win in the World Series, that the experience that the Dodgers have is going to become of a major benefit for them. The Blue Jays are going to be playing and they're going to go out there with the guys that they have with George Springer and the Max Scherzers being able to lead them as far as postseason veterans into the postseason. Yeah. And they're going to feel like they have nothing to lose against the Dodgers team, which can be a little bit dangerous. But so it's up to the Dodgers to, similar to what they did in the Milwaukee series, play poised, play in control, to do the small things, to be able to do a lot of the little things right. The Dodgers did a lot of the little things right. The Brewers did not. They have to be able to do the same thing against this Toronto Blue Jays team, because the Blue Jays have certain advantages. Play well defensively. They will not strike out, which means there's going to be opportunities for them to get a lot of base hits, to get some rallies going together, and they're going to frustrate a little bit some of the Dodgers pitching staff, and they have some swing and miss coming out of their team and coming out of their bullpen. The Dodgers as a unit have to be able to be disciplined as an offensive team, to be able to draw some walks. They have to be able to hit from power. They have to hit for more power than Toronto, which they did during the course of the regular season. And then they're starting pitching. If they can continue to have the success that they have had, it's going to be a series where the Dodgers are going to have a lot of success.
It is. So the one advantage the Blue Jays had, we've searched this whole thing. The one advantage the Blue Jays have is they have home field advantage, correct?
They also have better defense than what the Dodgers have. They have some really good defenders that are part of their mix.
Right. Okay, and the reason why their defense is better than their opponents is because they put more balls in play. So to me, just if you do the math, if you put more balls in play than your opponent, then even if they make more plays, the fielding percentage aspect of things typically.
No, this is not taking into account fielding percentage. This is taking into account the advanced metrics, defensive run save. You're looking at outs above average. You're looking at fielding run value. They have some real plus players that are play defense as a unit for the Toronto Blue Jays. Alejandro Kirk is phenomenal behind the plate.
But what I'm trying to say, they're the best team in baseball at putting the ball in play, correct?
Yes, as an offense. That we're taking into account just the defense that they have as a team. They are a really good defensive team.
Understood. So one of the reasons why the Dodgers are, other than the fact that they just have really good offensive players, one of the reasons why the Dodgers position players are typically speaking at the top. One of the reasons why like Max Muncy never wants to leave the Dodgers. You want to know why, Austin?
Why is that?
He doesn't want to have to face the Dodgers pitching, right? So the Dodgers hitters have a gigantic advantage in statistics because they get to go 162 games and never have to face Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They never have to face Tyler Glasnow. They never have to face Blake Snell. They never have to face Shohei Ohtani. That's a big advantage over every other single player on every other team because the Dodgers pitching is better. So kind of what I'm saying there is when you throw in all those metrics into it, whenever you defensively don't have to face the team that puts the most amount of balls in play, that's going to make all of your defensive metrics look a little bit bigger. But or a little bit better. That's kind of what I'm saying.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So from the odds perspective. So other than defense, we'll give you defense, okay? Mm-hmm. The one advantage the Blue Jays have is home field advantage, but I never thought about it this way. Michael just said this, and this just makes total sense, which is why the 2-3-2 is just absolute garbage. Okay, you know who actually has the advantage through 5 games?
Who's that?
The team that has the 3 games at home in the middle.
That's right.
So through 5 games, the team who has the 3 games in the middle, which is the team that technically does not have the home field advantage, they actually have played more games at home than the team that technically does have the home field advantage. And the team that technically has the home field advantage actually doesn't get that home field advantage until game 7. Right? I mean, so really, I mean, how big of an advantage actually is that? Because how many series actually go to 7 games?
And especially with the Dodgers and their pitching staff being able to do so well and do as well as they possibly can, this could be something to where, especially if the Dodgers at the very least be able to split the first 2 games, that is during a 7-game series, you at least take one on the road if you are the team that doesn't have home field advantage, and then you have 3 games to be able to go out there and make a serious dent in this series. So I'm not anticipating. I'm not as concerned, especially with the way that the Dodgers have gone out there and performed in some of these series where they haven't had home field advantage against Philadelphia in Philadelphia and won both of those games, against Milwaukee and won both of those games in Milwaukee and then in Philadelphia, of course, respectively. I believe the Dodgers can go out there and in any type of environment, which Toronto is going to be absolute rocking because they have not seen a World Series since 1993. This is their first chance to be able to go out there. A lot of fans, this is the first time ever seeing Blue Jays in the World Series. It's been 32 years. That place is going to be absolutely loud, absolutely rocking. And so it's going to be imperative for the Dodgers to be able to go out there and do as well as they possibly can at Toronto. And I think with the success that they've had in the previous road environments where Milwaukee was fighting to go back to the playoffs for the first time since 80, or back to the World Series for the first time since 82. Philadelphia is always rocking, and they had a tremendous club this year. And the Dodgers were able to handle both of those environments. I believe and have confidence that the Dodgers can handle a road environment to where I'm not as concerned about the home road aspect as opposed to the on-field performance aspect and the questions that we are wrestling with as what's going to happen with the on-field performance between the 2 clubs.
Okay, I need some advice here before we get out of here. This has been fun. Are we going to do this again tomorrow night, Austin?
Oh, yeah, we can do this tomorrow night.
Absolutely. We'll do it every did we say Thursday too?
We can do it Thursday. Yeah, we can do that.
And then you're no-go on a Friday post-game. Is that correct?
I'm good on Friday, not good on Saturday.
Awesome. I'll take you anytime I can get you, brother. You know that. Okay, so I need some advice. I've sat with Braden Fisher's dad. I've sat with his grandpa. I've sat with his entire family.
Yeah.
They're friends.
Yes.
They're like, like for instance, if I'm in Texas, the state of Texas, they're from Houston, okay, the Houston area, and I have a flat tire, and I'm like an hour and a half away. This is kind of what I'm talking about with the Fishers. Yeah. I would call Norm, or I would message Braden and say, hey, can your dad come and bring me a spare? And they would do it. Does that make sense? I mean, this is beyond just, hey, pitch for the drillers, and I mean, it's that kind of deal, right? Yeah. Okay, so when Braden Fisher takes that mound, okay, I mean, that's going to be personal for me. That's going to be because I've seen him in Tulsa on July 12th, and his parents going, how in the hell is he ever going to make the major leagues with all these guys in front of him, this and that? I mean, they just, and I point, you can ask Norm. I told him, I said, hey, he just needs to keep going. He's good enough. He's going to make it. It's gonna break. He'll get you. And honestly, I told him he's gonna get traded. I got a message about 6 months ago. Hey, this happened literally exactly like we talked about at Driller at One Oak Stadium. I keep saying Driller Stadium. That's what it was until 2009 when they built the downtown. So when Braden Fisher takes the mound, how am I going to be able to put my Dodger fandom over something personal like that? How do I do it?
It's very difficult. And
I don't know if I'm going to be able to, man.
It's very difficult for me to be able to do that too, because I got to see part of his story when he was coming up through Great Lakes and stuff. And I want to utilize this as a point and as a hope of optimism for pitchers within the system, because you mentioned it, sitting in Tulsa, sitting in Oklahoma City, and not getting an opportunity in this Dodgers organization that is absolutely stacked can be incredibly frustrating, but there is hope. if you have the talent to be able to do so, there will be opportunities for you to be able to do it, even if that comes through other organizations. And Braden Fisher showcased just how good he was this year. I don't think it's talked about quite enough just how good Braden Fisher was. At 270 ERA on the season for him in 50 innings for the Blue Jays. You look at a FIP 302, a 30.7 strikeout percentage for Braden Fisher. He was not just good, he was incredible as a reliever for the Toronto Blue Jays, which means that for the guys that are sitting down in Tulsa or Oklahoma City and waiting for an opportunity to be able to do so, if you have the talent to be able to do so, even if it doesn't come from the Dodgers organization, there is a chance, especially if you're given that opportunity, that you can go out there and you can absolutely perform. Because Braden Fisher, who was not given a chance by the Dodgers, went out there and was incredible for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, when it comes to this individual matchup in the World Series, I don't know what sort of advice, because I'm going to be conflicted myself. It depends on the situation. It depends on the situation. If it's high leverage situation,
if the Dodgers are winning by 10 runs, I'm going to hope he mows everybody down. I'm just
that's exactly right. What does the series look like, and what does the situation look like?
If the game's on the line, I might just turn it off.
Yes, because either results, that either a lot of people, especially in this chat, and the people that are here, Dodgers Dogs, all of the Dodgers fans are going to be absolutely elated, or it could be an opportunity for Braden and his family to be absolutely elated. Either way, I hope he is able to go out there. I hope he has some success, but I hope the Dodgers win the series pretty big.
Okay, last thing we're going to talk about here and get out of here. Tanner Scott, how long do the Dodgers have him?
The Dodgers have him you're talking about the contract-wise, after the season. I believe it's 3 more seasons after this year.
So there's no incentive whatsoever to leave him off the roster. You've got him for 3 more years. You paid him a butt ton of money. If he's healthy, there's no way you leave him off this roster. So if Tanner Scott actually is physically capable of being on this roster, he is going to replace Justin Robleski. Now, if this was a 1-year deal, like the Michael Conforto thing, I think you cut bait and you say, see ya. You invest in the Justin Robleski, who you're going to have for a long time moving forward. But knowing that you have Tanner Scott for the next 3 years, you need to, like we have in the chat here, great comment, you need to redevelop his confidence. He needs to be a big piece in your next 2 or 3 years down the stretch. I think that all reeks just about 100% chance that if he's healthy, he replaces Justin Robleski on this roster.
I think for me, it depends on who's pitching better. And this is very difficult because you don't have
for you, yes, and for me too, but not for the way the Dodgers do business.
Yes. But you can't make decisions, especially when it comes to the World Series, based off of future investment and say that somebody, because he has a long-term contract, just give him a roster spot in the postseason. If he's not pitching well, even if he is healthy, but the bullpens do not look good in the postseason, you can't have him as part of the World Series roster. The one thing that can put him on the postseason roster is if it's a close battle between him and Robo, depending on how the bullpens are looking and depending on how they're facing off against this week against some of the hitters that the Dodgers have, making sure that they're staying ready and game. And you believe that it's a close performance between the two, to where it doesn't matter a whole lot whether you have Robo on the roster or whether you have Tanner Scott on the roster. I think what they have to do, especially in the postseason type of environment, is, and this is especially elevated in the postseason type of environment, is it has to be a merit-based system, not a future building of confidence, because I think Tanner Scott, I think he's going to be motivated enough going forward, knowing that he had a terrible season this year, to be able to right the wrongs. And I think that the odds are that he is going to be able to find it going forward for the Dodgers, given his past track record. What I don't want is for the Dodgers to look at the contract situation and then make a determination as for the World Series roster based on that, as opposed to how guys are pitching right now.
I agree with everything you said. But what I'm trying to tell you is that's not the way the Dodgers do business when it comes down to guys like that. They will take the guy that they've seen him do it. Well, Blake Trinan is a perfect example. I mean, Blake Trinan struggle, keep giving him chances over a guy like Ben Kasparius. I agree with everything you said. I'm all about the meritocracy. What I'm trying to tell you is the way the Dodgers do business is that they will choose Tanner Scott over Justin Robleski 10 out of 10 times if it's a tie, which I think right now you would have to say it's a tie.
Especially because they really have not utilized Robo a whole lot, and if they can, utilize,
it's kind of like we debate the 13th position player. Okay, fine, we can have that. It's fun. Yeah. What else do we have to talk about? Hell, we're just trying to invent things to talk about till we're waiting for the World Series to start, anyways. But if the 13th position player and/or Tanner Scott have to make a big impact in this series, probably that means the Dodgers are going to lose. So that's not a good thing, anyways.
Yes, and it will depend on the Dodgers starters have to give some length in order for them to be able to succeed. And I think that is the expectation going forward, is that the Dodgers are going to be able to get some length out of their starters. It's up for the Blue Jays to be able to gather enough hits together to be able to combat the length that the Dodgers starters are going to be able to go in order to get to some of the later parts of the bullpen that might struggle a little bit more or might not be as fresh as some of the rest of the Dodgers pitchers because they have not pitched in a long time during the postseason.
What an awesome time it always is getting to talk to you, Austin. I always get to enjoy Dodgers baseball because I love two-sided conversations. I like being right in the middle and getting both sides up. I've just been in so many war rooms coaching-wise where this guy thinks this guy or gal or whoever it may be, and you just give all your thoughts back and forth, and it's respectful, and it's just a hell of a lot of – it's competitive, it's fun. It's that fun competitiveness to where I think this, you think that. We give both our sides. Some people in the chat think this, some people in the chat – that's just a hell of a lot of fun, and I can't think of anybody else that I can do that better with than you, because you take all of that just absolutely perfectly. So it's always so much fun to get to talk to you. I hate it that we don't get to link up as much during season because we're both so busy. But, man, I'll take any time we can get you. Austin, great job tonight. Thank you so much, brother. Tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, yes, tomorrow night we're going to be able to do this.
You're locked in, brother. You can't back out on me.
No. Yeah. So it'll be sometime tomorrow evening after I've got a Bible study that I got to go to. But yeah, no, this is an absolute joy to be able to interact with you, Casey. You have an absolute phenomenal baseball mind that's been in this game for a really long time, and be able to go back and forth. One thing that we're going to do is we're going to be respectful, but we're also going to bring up data. And this is where I try to come in and try to be able to provide this, because I want to back up our thoughts and our decisions as best as we possibly can. And I want to be able to provide not just you, but also the people here at Dodgers Dawgs with as many resources as we possibly can. So take advantage of the spreadsheet that we linked in the comments section or in the chat. It is a great resource for you guys to be able to truly evaluate where each one of these teams are at, and then to be able to have your own analysis from there, because I don't want our decisions to be solely based off of a full season stats or just solely based off of what they've done in the postseason and assume that the Blue Jays offense is this unbeatable juggernaut. Perhaps they can continue with the success that they've had in the postseason, but I think it's much more likely that a mix of all these different analyses is going to be the best case for us to be able to make a true evaluation for what's going to happen during the postseason. But ultimately, the game is going to be decided on the field, and we have no control over that. It's up to the Dodgers to play well and try to bring home another World Series championship. So, Casey, it's a joy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's an absolute joy to be able to do the show and be able to interact with this.
It's like when you gamble and it's like, man, that line looks off. Well, it is. Trust me. It always is. It's like, man, that team should be favored like 16. They're favored like 2. Something's off on that. Well, it is. Don't trust the ones. That's what's got me worried there. And there's also, last thing I'm going to say here, you know, when I first became a head coach, I got all my coaches together, and my first comment was, we had a big meeting, and I gave them all the expectations, this and this is how I work and this and that. And what I said was, whenever you leave, I want there's going to be times to where you leave and you get in your truck and you go, damn, I wish I hadn't have said that. I said, and that's perfectly fine, okay? Because we're big boys. We wear big boy pants around here, big girls, whoever it may be, because I coach softball as well. But I don't want there ever to be a time to where whenever it's in the favor of a kid, you get in your truck and you go, damn, I wish I would have spoke up. Don't ever let there be a time to where you were afraid to speak up. There will be times to where you go, damn, I wish I hadn't have said that, right? Yeah. So that's kind of how we do on this show, which makes it a hell of a lot of fun. So, hey, we will see you tomorrow night, Austin.
Sounds good. See you then.
It's a great day to be a Dodger.